The words stung like a slap to the face. "You'll never make it without me," she said, her voice cold and matter-of-fact, as if she were handing down some inevitable truth. I froze, every muscle in my body going stiff. The room around me seemed to shrink, the walls closing in. I could feel the weight of her words pressing down on me, heavier than anything I'd felt in years. My breath caught in my throat. I was so used to her dismissiveness, her arrogance, that it didn't surprise me anymore. But this time it hit different. Maybe it was the tone she used, or maybe it was because something inside me had finally snapped. I didn't respond immediately. I needed a moment to steady myself. My hands trembled as I gripped my phone, my knuckles white from the pressure. I knew she was watching me closely, waiting for me to react. I could feel her eyes boring into me, expecting something, anything, to show that she'd won. But I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction. Not this time. I looked at her, holding her gaze. My face was calm, almost too calm. I could feel the anger bubbling under the surface, but I wasn't about to let her see it. "I understand," I said, keeping my voice steady, my eyes steady. I had no idea where that response came from. Maybe it was just the only thing I could think of to keep myself from losing control. But it felt right in that moment, somehow. Like a quiet rebellion. I saw her blink, as if my calmness had thrown her off. She was expecting me to lash out, to beg for her forgiveness or plead with her to stay. But I wasn't that guy anymore. I had spent too many years doing that. Too many years apologizing for things I didn't do, trying to fix things that were never broken to begin with. I turned away from her, my heart pounding in my chest. There was this nagging feeling at the back of my mind, a whisper that I couldn't quite shake. Is she right? Can I really make it without her? The question lingered, and for a split second I almost believed it. My entire life, she had been the one to push me down when I tried to rise, the one to tell me I wasn't good enough. Could I really do this on my own? I shook my head, trying to banish the thought. "Number, I'm stronger than this." The silence between us was suffocating, broken only by the sound of my heartbeat pounding in my ears. The ticking of the clock on the wall seemed to grow louder, each tick a reminder of the time slipping away. Time I couldn't get back. Time wasted on someone who never believed in me. I took a deep breath, pushing all the fear, the doubt, the confusion to the back of my mind. I had spent far too long trying to fit into the life she wanted for me. But I wasn't going to do that anymore. I was done. I walked out of the room without saying another word. My legs felt heavy as I made my way to the front door. The air outside was cool, and the weight that had been crushing me seemed to lift just a little. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew I had to get away. As I reached for my keys, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out, seeing Claire's name on the screen. I almost ignored it. Almost. But something inside me urged me to open the message. "You'll regret this. You'll see. You won't make it without me." I stared at the words for a moment, the familiar feeling of anger rising in my chest. But this time it was different. I wasn't going to respond with words. No, this time I was going to show her. I was going to show her that I didn't need her to succeed. I was going to prove to myself and to her that I could make it on my own. I smiled to myself as I typed a quick reply. "We'll see." I hit send and pocketed my phone, then turned to face the world outside, ready for whatever came next. It's funny how life works sometimes. You think you have everything figured out, then one little thing happens, and everything changes. That's where I was before everything went south, on the edge of a new chapter I was cautiously excited about. I had started rebuilding my life, piece by piece, trying to make sense of the years I'd spent trapped in a marriage that drained me. I stood there, staring out the window of my small apartment, watching the world go by. It was a rainy evening, the kind where the world seems a little quieter. You know, the type of evening where you can almost hear your own thoughts a little too clearly. The sound of the rain tapping against the window felt like a soft reminder that time was moving forward, whether I was ready for it or not. I wasn't quite sure if I was. I had left Claire almost a year ago, but the scars from that marriage didn't just disappear overnight. Sure, the apartment I now called home wasn't much to look at, a modest space in a neighborhood that wasn't quite the best but wasn't the worst either. But it was mine. For the first time in a long time, I didn't have to answer to anyone, and I wasn't living under the crushing weight of someone else's expectations. I could breathe again, or at least that's what I told myself. But I wasn't exactly thriving yet. There were days when I woke up and wondered if I was doing this right, if I was doing enough. Could I really make it on my own, like I told Claire? Or was I just pretending, lying to myself, thinking I could escape the ghost of the past? I ran my hand through my hair and leaned against the counter, staring at the half-finished coffee mug in front of me. It was one of those days where you try to convince yourself that everything is fine, even though a part of you knows it's not. And yet, as miserable as I felt in that moment, I couldn't deny the truth that had been quietly building inside me. I was stronger than I had been in years. I had made it this far without Claire's help, without her pushing me down, without her telling me I was nothing. But despite my growth, there was still that nagging feeling, one that whispered to me late at night, when everything was too quiet and I had too much time to think. It was like the echoes of all those years of doubt, all the things Claire used to say to make me feel small had left their mark. I stared out the window, the streets soaked from the rain, reflecting the city lights. I knew I had to keep going. I didn't want to fall back into that trap of self-pity. The first step toward moving on was accepting that it wasn't going to be easy. No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't erase the past. Those memories were locked inside me, whether I liked it or not. And the memories of Claire, well, they were the hardest to shake. But things had changed. I had changed. Slowly but surely, I was beginning to believe it. My phone buzzed on the counter, dragging me out of my thoughts. I glanced down and saw a notification from my bank app. My mortgage payment had gone through. A wave of unease swept over me. I hadn't been able to afford a house for a long time, but somehow I'd made it happen. There was no way Claire could have predicted that. No way she could have known that I would be living in a place I could call my own again, something that was actually mine. That was progress, right? But then I thought about the car I'd bought a few weeks ago. A used one, nothing fancy, but it was mine. No more driving the old piece of junk I'd kept for years because Claire never let me buy something better. It wasn't just about the car or the house, though. It was about me. It was about the choices I was finally making for myself. As I stood there, staring at the rain outside, I realized something. This was only the beginning. I had spent far too many years living in someone else's shadow, doubting my abilities, doubting my worth. But those days were over. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was living, and I was ready to start thriving, and I was going to do it on my terms. I took another sip of my coffee, my hands finally steady. I wasn't looking for validation from anyone anymore. Not from Claire, not from anyone. This was my life, and I was taking it back, one step at a time. Now I just had to keep going, keep pushing. And whatever came next, I would face it with a strength I never knew I had. It's strange how life has a way of testing you when you're least prepared. I thought I was over Claire. I thought I had moved on, left the past behind. But every now and then, those little things, those little memories would creep in. And when they did, they would hit me like a freight train. I was sitting in my new car one afternoon, parked at a cafe, just trying to enjoy some peace for once. The sun was setting, casting a golden glow over the street, and for a brief moment I felt content. I'd worked hard to get here, and I was finally starting to see the fruits of my labor. I hadn't been this relaxed in ages. But then my phone buzzed. My stomach dropped when I saw her name on the screen. Claire. It had been a while since I'd heard from her. Our divorce had been messy, filled with arguments, accusations, and anger. After everything, I figured I wouldn't hear from her again, unless it was something official, like financial matters or some form of communication I could ignore. But this was different. I had no idea what she wanted, and for some reason that made me nervous. I hesitated before opening the message. My hands felt cold as I swiped the screen. The words I saw next hit me like a sucker punch to the gut. I hope you realize that without me, you're nothing. You'll never make it, and you'll always be alone. No one will ever love you the way I did. Her words seemed to hang in the air, suffocating me with their weight. It wasn't even the content of the message that hit hardest. It was the fact that she still believed she could control me. It was as if she thought, after everything we'd been through, that she could just reach into my life and pull me back in with a few cruel words. I couldn't help it. The anger bubbled up in me, hot and sharp, like lava ready to erupt. How dare she? After all the lies, after everything she put me through, how could she still think she had the power to hurt me like this? I slammed my fist into the steering wheel, the sound echoing in the quiet car. I didn't even care that people were walking by. My heart was pounding, and I could feel the rage pulsing through my veins. The betrayal, the manipulation, the constant undermining of my worth, it was all still there, just beneath the surface, waiting to be triggered. The anger was real, but what was worse was the doubt that crept in alongside it. What if she's right? What if I'm just pretending to be okay, pretending to have it all together? I gripped the steering wheel tightly, my knuckles aching as I stared out the windshield, trying to push the thoughts away. My phone buzzed again, but I didn't have to look to know it was her. I could feel the sting of her words still hanging in the air like a thick fog. The thing was, Claire had always known how to get to me. She had a way of twisting the knife in the most subtle ways, of making me feel like I was never enough. But this time, it was different. I wasn't the same guy I was when we were together. I wasn't the same man who needed her approval, who feared her disapproval. As I sat there in the car, my breath slowly coming back to me, I made a decision. I wasn't going to let her win. Not now. Not ever again. I could feel the resolve building inside me, like a steady flame. She's wrong. I whispered that to myself over and over, like a mantra. I don't need her. I've already made it this far without her. I will keep moving forward. I grabbed my phone and quickly tapped out a response. It wasn't a long message, just enough to let her know that I wasn't interested in her attempts to drag me back into her world. I hit send before I could second-guess myself. I'm doing just fine without you. You'll see. I don't need you to succeed. The moment I sent it, a strange sense of relief washed over me. It wasn't about proving her wrong. It was about proving to myself that I had finally taken control of my own destiny. I started the engine, and as the car roared to life, I could feel something inside me shift. It was like the door to the past had slammed shut, and I was now free to move forward. The future felt wide open in front of me, no longer tied to her, no longer weighed down by her judgment. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I was finally in charge of my own life. And nothing, not her, not anyone, could take that from me. The days that followed that message were strange. On one hand, there was this undeniable sense of relief. I had finally let go. It felt like the weight of years of doubt and regret had been lifted, even if just for a moment. I didn't need Claire's validation. I didn't need anyone to tell me what I was capable of. I had started to believe in myself again. But then, on the other hand, there was this gnawing feeling deep inside me that I couldn't shake. What now? I had spent so many years wrapped up in Claire's world, her control, her demands. Without her, I had been floating in a space that felt new, but still uncertain. I needed to prove to myself that I could really stand on my own. No more excuses, no more hiding behind the past. I needed to show Claire that I could make it without her, in the most definitive way possible. I decided it was time to act. I woke up early that Saturday morning, a wave of determination washing over me as the sunlight filtered through my window. I had been thinking about it for weeks, but now it was time. It was time to take control of my future in a way that made it undeniable. I wasn't going to sit around anymore, wondering if I could do it. I was going to make it happen. And I wasn't just going to let it be about success in the vague sense of the word. I was going to show Claire and everyone else who doubted me that I was thriving. I pulled on my jacket, grabbed my keys, and walked out the door, the cool morning air hitting my face as I locked it behind me. My car was waiting in the driveway. It was more than just a car. It symbolized freedom. It symbolized growth. I had earned it. It wasn't fancy, but it was mine. I had made a decision that morning that was about more than just getting a new car or a new house. I was going to take the next big step, something that would prove to myself once and for all that I was capable of building a new life, something that would mark the real turning point. I drove to the real estate office, my heart beating a little faster as I approached the building. My palms were sweaty, but there was a sense of excitement bubbling inside me that I hadn't felt in years. I parked in the lot, taking a moment to breathe deeply, steady myself. This is it. You've got this. The doorbell chimed as I stepped into the office. A young woman behind the desk greeted me with a smile, but I could barely focus on her. I was too caught up in the rush of adrenaline, in the pull of my decision. I was here, I was doing it. I'd been browsing homes for months, trying to find the one that felt right, something that would be mine, something that would be a fresh start. I hadn't expected to pull the trigger today, but today felt different. I had a plan. It was time. I sat down with the agent, barely listening as she walked me through the paperwork and the options available. I already knew what I wanted. I had spent too long waiting for permission from others, for someone to tell me it was okay to take this step. But now, no one could stop me. When she showed me the listings, I didn't hesitate. I pointed to one that had caught my eye. It was small, but cozy, with a view of the city skyline. I could picture it now, my own space, where I wouldn't have to answer to anyone but myself. It was a quiet rebellion, a testament to everything I had overcome. "Let's make an offer," I said, the words leaving my lips with surprising confidence. My stomach did a little flip, but I knew it was the right choice. I was going to buy this house. I wasn't going to wait for the perfect moment or second-guess myself. The agent looked at me with some surprise, but nodded, typing away on her computer. As she finished up the details, I felt this rush of pride flood through me. I was doing it. I was finally doing it. This was mine. No one could take this from me. And then, as if in the same breath, I knew exactly what I needed to do next. I pulled out my phone, opened the photos, and picked the one I had been holding on to for a while now. It was a picture from a weekend getaway I had taken with Sophie, my new girlfriend. It wasn't anything extraordinary, just a simple shot of the two of us laughing by the beach, carefree and happy. The kind of happiness I hadn't known in years. With a smirk, I tapped out a message to Claire, attaching the photo of me with Sophie. I didn't need to say much. The picture spoke for itself. I didn't owe her an explanation anymore. This was my life, my success. Look, I'm doing just fine without you. Here's to new beginnings. I hit send, my heart racing as the message went through. As I sat back in my chair, staring at the phone, I realized something. This wasn't about showing Claire up. It wasn't about proving her wrong. It was about me. It was about standing on my own 2 feet, no longer shackled by the past. This was my moment of freedom. And no one, not even her, could take it away from me. It didn't take long for the message to come through. It felt like an eternity, waiting for her response. I kept glancing at my phone, my stomach twisting in anticipation. Maybe I shouldn't have done it, I thought briefly. Maybe I was just setting myself up for another round of emotional turmoil, letting Claire back into my mind when I promised myself I was done with her. But I had to know. I had to prove something. Not to her, but to myself. The moment the notification popped up, I didn't even have to look closely to know it was her. My heart skipped a beat, my fingers trembling slightly as I unlocked the phone. I felt this strange sense of power welling up inside me. I wasn't nervous. No, this was different. This was about reclaiming control. I took a deep breath before opening her message. What the hell do you think you're doing? You think this proves something? You think I'll be jealous? You'll regret this. I'm telling you, you're going to fail. You'll be alone forever. The words hit me hard, but not in the way I expected. There was no rush of anger or frustration. Instead, I felt something else. Relief and a bit of sadness. Because in that moment, I realized she still couldn't see it. She still couldn't see me for who I had become. She thought I was weak, lost without her. And I could almost hear the desperation in her words, the hint of panic, as if she was trying to convince herself that I was still the man she could control. But I wasn't that man anymore. I looked at the message for a few more seconds, the cold bitterness of her words slowly fading into something I couldn't quite describe. Was it pity? Maybe. I didn't want to feel that way, but I couldn't help it. She was stuck, clinging to the past, while I was moving forward. I didn't need to fight with her. I didn't need to engage in a battle that had already been won. I took a deep breath, wiped the faint smile that had formed from my lips, and set the phone down on the table. I didn't need to respond. I didn't need to prove anything to her anymore. The victory wasn't in the words I said back. It was in the fact that I was here, living my life, and she wasn't the one pulling the strings anymore. I looked out the window again, the city skyline glowing in the distance. There was a certain quiet satisfaction in knowing I had made it this far. I had a house of my own, a car I could call mine, a future that was no longer clouded by her negativity and control. But most of all, I had me, the person I was always meant to be. Sophie called me a little later that afternoon, her voice warm and light as always. We talked about the weekend plans, about a new restaurant we'd been wanting to try. I could feel the joy in her words, the lightness that seemed to surround her. I smiled, genuinely this time, not just because I knew I was doing well, but because I had someone who saw me for who I truly was, someone who believed in me without reservations. And that was all I needed. When I hung up, I stood up and walked to the window, watching the rain start to fall again. But it didn't feel heavy this time. It felt cleansing. I had let go of the past. I had let go of Claire. And now I was free to move forward. No more fears, no more doubts. For the first time in years, I finally understood something that had eluded me for so long. I didn't need anyone to tell me what I was capable of. I already knew. The world was mine to conquer, and this time I would do it on my own terms. I had built my life from the ground up, and no one, not even Claire, could take that away from me. I picked up my phone again, but this time I didn't send any messages. I didn't need to. I was done proving anything. I had already won. It's funny how life can hit you with the unexpected when you least expect it. In a way, I thought that sending that picture to Claire, showing her how far I'd come, would be the thing that sealed my victory. I thought I needed her to see it, to recognize what I had achieved without her. But as the days passed and the dust settled, I realized the real victory had nothing to do with her at all. It was about me. I remember sitting on the porch of my new house a week later, sipping coffee, watching the sun rise over the horizon. I had a feeling of quiet satisfaction, almost like a deep breath after holding it in for far too long. Everything was finally starting to come together piece by piece. The house wasn't perfect, but it was mine. The car wasn't brand new, but it symbolized independence. I had a job I loved, and a future that wasn't shackled by the weight of my past mistakes. But most importantly, I had myself, and that's what I needed all along. I used to be the kind of person who doubted my worth, who let the people around me define what I could and couldn't do. I had spent so many years trying to live up to Claire's expectations, bending to her will, always striving for something that was never going to be enough. She had manipulated me into thinking I needed her, that I couldn't survive without her. But the truth was, I had always been enough. I just needed to realize it. When Claire sent me that last message, part of me thought I'd feel some kind of satisfaction from her anger, from her frustration. But instead, I felt pity. It was as if she was still stuck in the past, still trying to control me from a distance. And it hit me. She was still the one holding on to me while I had already moved on. I didn't need to win a battle with her. I didn't need to show her I was better. Because the truth was, the biggest victory was the one I had achieved on my own. I hadn't realized it at the time, but the real strength came from letting go, not just of Claire, but of all the things that held me back. The doubt, the guilt, the fear that I would never be enough. Once I let that go, everything else fell into place. I could finally see clearly, and I wasn't looking back anymore. Sophie and I spent more weekends together. I still couldn't believe how easy it was to be with her, how different it felt from anything I had experienced in the past. She didn't judge me for my mistakes, didn't try to change me. She accepted me for who I was. And for the first time in years, I felt like I was enough. Looking back, I realized that the greatest revenge wasn't in any material success or in proving Claire wrong. The real revenge was in my growth. The way I had taken my life back, piece by piece, and built something real. Something that belonged to me, and only me. Now, when I think about that moment when Claire told me, "You'll never make it without me," I don't feel anger or resentment anymore. Instead, I feel a sense of calm, because I know I didn't need her to succeed. I never did. I was always capable. And I will continue to move forward, no matter who tries to tell me otherwise. I've learned that success doesn't come from external validation. It comes from within, from believing in yourself, even when no one else does. And as for Claire, well, she's still stuck in her world of manipulation and control, but I've left that world behind. I'm finally free, and no one can take that away from me. Sometimes, the best thing you can do is let go of the past and step into the future, fully aware that the only person who gets to define your worth is you. And that's exactly what I did.